Hi, I'm Kristin Fisher for Fox News and FoxNews.com, and we are live in Cleveland for Day 3 of the Republican National Convention, and I am joined by Anthony Scaramucci. He is Scaramucci.
That's close enough.
Scaramucci. We practiced this beforehand.
Yeah, but that was good.
Worried I'd butcher
Sounded
it,
good.
So. Pretty good.
Yeah,
pretty
that was
good.
really good.
He is on Trump's National Finance Committee and a host on the Fox Business Network. So we're going to ask him about starting out with Day 2. Yesterday was Day 2. The theme, Make America Work Again.
Make America
and
Work, sure.
Since you're on his Finance Committee, I wanted to ask you what you thought of how all the speakers did in terms of getting his economic message across.
Well, I think, I don't want to oversimplify this, but I think there are like 5 or 6 super meaningful speeches to the American public this week. One would be Melania's speech. One would be Donald Trump Jr. Tonight it'll be Eric Trump, Ivanka, obviously Vice Presidential nominee Pence or Governor Pence, and of course Mr. Trump's speech will be the big motherlode speech, if you will. So when you think about those speeches, I think they've done well. Obviously Melania, we could talk about the plagiarized issue, but she's a very elegant, she's beautiful from the inside out. She's incredibly classy. And Donald Trump Jr., boy, I'll tell you what, if you're if you're in New York and you're a political person, be careful, because he could take your job, okay? His father swooped in and knocked 16 other guys that were professional politicians out of the game in presidential politics, and Donald Trump Jr. Who knows what he could do, given how eloquent he was last night and frankly how charismatic he was. And so those speeches were great. For me, because I am a New Yorker, I love Rudy's speech. I thought Governor Kristin did a really good job as well.
Donald Trump Jr. really talked a lot about his father's business prowess, and Tiffany Trump, his daughter, talked about some of the things that she learned growing up with him on construction sites, kind of getting her hands dirty. Talked about how her father wasn't always behind a big desk, and I'm wondering how you thought that played out.
Well, listen, she said something, and I feel bad that I left her out, because I should have included her as well, because I thought her speech was amazing.
Yeah.
But she said something yesterday, Kristin, that really resonated with me, and I really hope that my children will someday say that about me. She said that her dad was a great encourager. I mean, that is a beautiful thing to say, and I'll tell you what, there were 20+ million people watching that at home. If you're a parent or you have children, you got to be saying to yourself, boy, he did raise an incredible group of young people. They're certainly adults now, but I got to tell you, you got to tip your hat to him and his family, his ex-wife, his current wife, Marla Maples, etc. These are really, really well-adjusted people.
So the theme yesterday was supposed to really focus on Trump's economic message, getting Americans back to work again, but some of his critics have said that it was kind of light on that last night, that a lot of the speakers didn't really drill in on some of the substance that they were really hoping to get, and that's been one of his big critiques throughout this campaign, is that he has been light on substance.
I think that he hasn't in the following respect. His brand, this is almost like the Bob the Builder candidacy, where can he fix it? Yes, he can. Donald Trump's brand is to be a fixer. He's going to come in and try to solve these problems, okay? So he does have starting positions that he's laid out in the Republican Party platform. He does have a starting position that he's laid out as it relates to taxes. He's clearly wants to shift the debate on immigration, and frankly, he's for legal immigration and for the enforcement of what's on the books and records of the United States. The notion that he's anti-immigration is a complete falsehood. The notion that he's an isolationist is a complete falsehood. And so we need to bolster that up and add clarity to those positions, Kristin, over the coming months, which I think will happen. But the brand and the design of the convention, in my opinion, this week is about, here is the family, here is a family man, here's a great business builder and a great entrepreneur and a brand builder. Here's a strong, tough negotiator on behalf of the American people. And by the way, let's face it, he doesn't have to do this, He's already got his plane, he's got plenty of housing, so doesn't really need to do this.
So let's talk about today's theme, Make America First Again. I think one of the big issues that's going to come up is trade, and this is really one of the issues that has kind of divided the Republican Party. Trump coming out and saying that he would rip up a lot of the international trade deals, that he'd consider withdrawing from NAFTA, called TPP the rape of our country. Do you think it's going to be talked about
Do you find that he talks in a certain rhetorical flourish, Kristin? Is that one of the things he likes to do?
You don't say, just a little bit.
So let me explain it for your listeners and your viewers. Okay, so over the last 70 years, the State Department, in conjunction with Treasury and a bipartisan commitment both at the executive branch and through the Congress, has made a decision to make the trade deals uneven with most of the developing nations in the world. As an example, you can sell your goods and services to the United States, like automobiles from Japan, or television sets from Korea, or other types of manufactured products from China, but yet we have a tough time selling our stuff back. Steve Feinberg, who's here with us, is a close personal friend. He runs Cerberus. He would tell you that if he could sell his Chrysler cars in 2008 into the Chinese and the Japanese markets, he would have never had to go bankrupt during that period of time. And so all Mr. Trump is saying is that these trade agreements are uneven. They were uneven for a reason. It did make sense. It was to economically integrate and create burgeoning middle classes in the developing world. He sort of feels like that has happened now, and now it's time to protect the American worker and to protect the American middle class by right-sizing those trade agreements. You know, there are provisions in NAFTA and the WTO and these other agreements that they should be subjected to review every certain amount of years and make them more fair. That has not happened. So that's what he's calling for. I actually think he's the last great hope for globalism. Because if we don't get a guy like Donald Trump in there to make these agreements fairer, free trade, but fair trade, we're going to have a big problem on our hands.
Let's talk about fundraising. Now that Trump has actually become the nominee, I mean, he's been lagging behind Hillary Clinton significantly, by hundreds of millions of dollars. So, I mean, now that he's the nominee, do you see that changing anytime soon, or does that need to change?
I don't necessarily see that changing. I think that, you know, I met with Mr. Trump on April 23rd with Senator Scott Brown, who's a contributor on our network, and the former senator of Massachusetts. So it was a three-person meeting, and we laid out a plan for him and said, look, the goal should be to raise about $500 million.
Between now and November?
Correct, and that was April to November. If you can get the $500 million, you'll be competitive in terms of enough capital to allocate into a ground game and into the resources necessary in the swing state for advertising. Now let me give you some quick stats. $57 million spent in the primary. He slayed 16 people. That's a 3.35 million per candidate hit-to-kill ratio. Secretary Clinton, $183 million spent in the primary. She barely beat a 74-year-old socialist who just entered the Democratic Party about 22 months ago. And so if you look at the disparity there in the ratio, he has 60 times the power, Christian, in terms of a way to deploy his capital. He can do a lot more with a lot less. And so if he raises $500 million and she raises $2 billion, I think he's priced competitively for what his skill set is in the marketplace.
Tonight's the big night for Mike Pence. How can he help Trump
well, he's already
fundraising numbers?
Well, he's already helped Trump, and I think if you get other fundraisers like myself sitting in this chair, they would tell you that Governor Pence is a long-time, well-established conservative leader, principle-based leader. The donor base loves him. I can't tell you the number of calls that I got over the weekend from fence sitters. When I started this process late April, we were getting a lot of maybes. We were getting certainly a lot of no's. We were getting a reasonable amount of yeses. Now those maybes are getting converted into yeses, and those no's are, hey, why don't you call me after the convention? And so there's a consolidation happening, which I am optimistic about.
And the no's saying to call after the convention.
Yep.
Who knows what will happen? And so
remember, no spelled backwards is on. Okay, you got to remember that. Okay, you got to keep digging.
So, as someone on, Trump's National Finance Committee, just now that we're in day 3, about to wrap up the convention or halfway through it, how do you feel about his fundraising numbers? I mean, are you guys concerned, happy with it? I mean, just
listen,
how would you summarize
I think he can get to the $500 million number. He's done roughly $54 million. Between the little stub period in May and the June number. I think the July number will be above the June number. I don't know the exact number, so it would be foolish of me to tell you what it is.
Right.
But I think he'll continue to slope upward, and if you did a dot plot of what that slope looks like, you get yourself to the $500 million. And don't forget, there's an ample amount of liquidity that he has. And so he's already put in about $50 million.
Is he going to put in a lot more, you think?
My guess is he'll probably put in more. Could he put in another $50 to $100 million? I mean, that'll be his decision to make.
Yeah.
But he'll have enough. He'll be in a well-fortified capital position. But where Mr. Trump is going to win this election is on the ideas. Where he's going to win the election is that the fatigue that the American people have on sort of these left-leaning policies that are certainly well-intended by President Obama and Secretary Clinton, but they just don't work. When you apply those left-leaning policies to the practice of the real world, you end up with poverty maintenance and a slope downward for people that are poor, and you end up with a shrinking middle class and a very uneven education system, which is hurting the future generations of Americans. And so we have to clean that up now before it's too late.
All right, Anthony, thank you so much for being
Really,
with us.
really
I'll let you head on over to the queue.
Thank you. I hope I see you over there.
I'll be over. I'm heading there
I know
shortly.
You can't wear a Make America Great hat, but I have one for you if you need it.
Thanks very much.
All right.
All right, I'm Kristin Fisher for Fox News. Stick to foxnews.com for all of your latest RNC coverage.